Aha. Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth. So I work as a campaigner mostly in the marine conservation sector. And I want to talk a little bit about what I've kind of observed about sort of conservation organisations and how they're kind of using communication and why I think they need to pay more attention to the behavioural sciences and not just the environmental sciences. So when I did my conservation masters, a lot of my colleagues, my peers and my teachers were really surprised to discover that I'd done a psychology degree as my first degree, and they were saying like, well, that's a bit weird because, you know, this is a biological science and, you know, this is going to be really challenging for you. And I always thought that was strange because I think that conservation is a social science. I think conservation is about what do we do because people have been messing stuff up, right? So it's about like what are the drivers for why this has all happened. It's not so much to do with, you know, the physiology of a particular creature. It's to do with the, you know, the economic and psychological incentives that have driven people to change the environment. And so the conservation sector is dominated by people with a biological sciences background, and whilst that obviously makes sense in some ways, I think it means that they're missing a lot of tricks in other ways about how to communicate. Oh, I had changed this, but anyway, never mind. So this is what I see a lot of in the conservation sector. So a reliance on like what I think of as quite like old-fashioned models of communicating. So a reliance on the information deficit model, which says that people are behaving in a certain way because they don't have the right information, and if we just get that to them, then they'll change their behaviour. I think we all know that that's not the full story. The idea that attitude change then leads to behaviour change. So you give someone the information, change their attitude, then their behaviour changes. Actually, it's mostly the other way around, that if their behaviour changes, then their attitude changes. There's also in conservation communication, I think, a lot of focus on the problem, like too much focus on the problem and not enough focus on the solution. And I'm going to be talking a bit about shock and fear and the focus on negativity as opposed to positivity as one of the things that I've particularly done some work on. So these, I'm just going to show like a few examples of adverts from the conservation sector that have been held up as like really good examples of like conservation adverts. So this is one about shark fin soup, some lovely dead sharks there with their fins cut off. This is raising awareness of the forest fires in Indonesia, a monkey there burning, that's nice. Then this one is called Sea Panda Think Tuna, and the purpose is supposed to be to draw attention to the fact that you know, there's a lot of overfishing going on, you know, thousands of tunas are being killed, they're an endangered species, why don't we think about that like we do a panda? From my perspective, I'm not sure that any of these adverts make me think like, oh yeah, I should do something about that. They just make me not really want to look at the advert anymore. So the conservation sector relies on this kind of like, oh God, everything's awful kind of narrative quite a lot. And unsurprisingly, there also seems to be quite a gloomy atmosphere within conservation biology as well. And this was a quote from a journal a few years ago. But it's a shame because there are positive stories out there. There are a lot of solutions and a lot of success stories. I worked on a campaign called Ocean Optimism, #OceanOptimism, which was all about trying to encourage people to share positive stories about the ocean. And it actually turns out that one, there are loads of them, and two, people love sharing positive stories, which I'm sure a lot of you know as well from your work. And so the Ocean Optimism hashtag has been around for about 18 months now, and we've reached over 50 million people with it, and it just kind of continues to grow and grow and grow and is inspiring lots of other things like Earth optimism and climate optimism and stuff like that. So I guess this is just my focus on kind of positivity and the power of positivity. It does all these amazing things. It encourages open-mindedness and creativity. If someone's received threatening information, if they're in a positive frame of mind, then they'll be able to deal with that information more. And it leads to more of an action orientation, which is ultimately what we all want, right? If we're asking people to do something, we want them to be in the frame of mind where they're more likely to do it. Whereas negative information is much more likely to make people switch off, to turn away, in fact go shopping. One study found young people more likely to go shopping when they'd been given information about bad environmental threats. It's obviously the opposite of kind of what you wanted people to do. And in fact the data shows that we should be aiming for about 3 to 6 positive messages for every 1 negative message that we put out. Like obviously negative messaging and fear has a place, but at the moment it's totally skewed, and I don't know if that's how it is in all of your sectors as well, but in the conservation sector I feel like it's totally the wrong way round. This is just to kind of finish with just to say that what I've just talked about in terms of the positivity is just like a tiny little bit of like this massive wealth of behavioural science. So this is a mnemonic to remember some of the kind of key things that scientists have found always show a really robust effect. So what I've been talking about would fit into the affect, our emotional associations, and like how we're feeling about stuff. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you know here, like the messenger is as important as the message, like defaults and social norming, like how novel the information is for people. But yeah, if people are interested in this, I would recommend that you look up the work of the Behavioural Insights team, Paul Dolan, who's done a lot of work on this, particularly in happiness, and also the Common Cause as well, have done some really interesting things around how we frame stuff. And I'd love also to talk to anybody who's interested in this kind of stuff in an environmental or conservation context.